a man, Bojangles, he danced for you. In worn out shoes, silver hair, a ragged shirt, and baggy pants, he would do the old soft shoe. He jumped so high, he would jump so high, he jumped so high, then he lightly touched down. We met him in a cell in New Orleans. We were, you know how it is.
We just love the McFadden brothers. I guess you can tell they come here so often. They did a wonderful show. I'm supposed to give you a little bit of background about the McFadden brothers, but you all already know about them. You all have been to the shows many times, and you know how they wow the audiences. You know, the singing, the musical instruments they play, the dancing. Just, they dazzle us all the time. I will never forget this past New Year's, my 88-year-old mother, who has to get around with a cane, was enjoying their music so much and stood up and was swaying, put that cane down, and was swaying back and forth. And she was having a good time. She just loved the music, and that is a great, great thing is when everybody, every generation, my daughter, who was in her 20s, was up, swaying. Everybody, we all enjoyed the music. We all enjoyed the liveliness, the vibrancy with which they present their life. Again, this is really their show, so I'm going to quit talking. But just, again, you can see how pleased we are to host this. And I will turn it over to the McFadden brothers.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank you all for just coming. And it just means a lot to just see somebody here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody is good. That's a good thing. This is our first time doing something like this, so I don't know if it would be better if we just. Matter of fact, since I told them don't give me options because I need them to tell me what's. But I'd like to know if you guys have any questions before I just start talking. You know, because I'll just run off. So does anybody have any questions about it? Okay.
So when did you know that this was what you wanted to do for the rest of your life? When did you know the tap music? When did you know and feel that this was?
Okay, let's do it individually.
Yeah, I think for me, wow. I think after I started playing saxophone in the 4th grade, must have been around the 5th grade, and I would act like I was playing the record. And some of the kids in the neighborhood thought it was me that was actually playing, you know, so I just liked the feeling. Plus, our dad, you know, we were kind of drafted in it, so we were doing it before we even realized it, you know. And I remember the first gig we did, I think we got paid $20 a piece. And after that, you know, we went over to the foundation. Our dad took us to the foundation, and we hung out all night with the older musicians. They passed the hat. We played. They passed the hat, and we got $10 more a piece. That got me.
I think for me, even though we were doing this at an early age, it's like Ron said, we were drafted, so it hadn't hit me. And because we had been listening to the stories that our father told about when he was on the road. And my father, he was like the greatest storyteller and the greatest dad. We learned how to tap dance without even knowing we were learning something that everybody else didn't do. I mean, we'd be at church and he'd say, "Where's the break?" You know, the choir be singing, because he taught us, we understood the way music was put together, like 12-bar blues or 32 bars and things like that. We didn't know we were learning it because he would just say, "Where's the break?" And then dancing, like for instance, where the bridge is or the turnaround, whatever you want to call it. That's where the break is for a tap dancer. So we had learned where the break was, and we'd be sitting in church. My mother didn't know me. Where's the break? You know, and we'd be sitting there listening to choir, and Ronald or I said, "There's the break right there." Yeah. So he was always teaching us about music, always. He was just, it was like playtime with Daddy. But I still didn't know I wanted to do that until we used to play baseball. He was like the manager of the baseball team. And when I got older, I was playing baseball and I was really getting into playing the trumpet. And I think when I finally knew that this was something I wanted to do, I heard, I know everybody in here is too young to remember a band called Clyde and Her, but I was like 14 years old. And see, I grew up, that's another, I'm missing a very important part. Clyde was a friend, our father was a friend of Clyde's mom and dad. And his uncle lived right next door to us. He was a bass player also, a jazz bass player, good friends of Betty. Like I'm saying, if I keep talking, you'll see the lineage. Everybody was, back then, everybody knew everybody. Fats Dennis, all these guys. So it's like, what happened, one time we were just sitting in the living room playing with our racing cars. And this real dressed up teenager, and you know when you're a little kid, teenagers, they are just like rock stars. And this guy we called Binky, we just met him. So he's real dressed up in his apple cap and all that stuff, and he drove this Lincoln Continental. And he was like 16, 17 years old. We were like 8 or 9 or something like that. Yeah. But he played the trumpet. And he came over and he was playing Grazing in the Grass. And Ronald and I was playing racing car. So he was dressed, he just jumped in the floor with us playing. So we just loved Binky. Later on, about a couple of years later, both of us started playing instruments basically because we just wanted to be like Binky, who was Clyde. We never even knew his real name till I saw him on stage with Clyde and Her. That's when I realized that, because that's the first time I had ever, you know how you hear certain music and it makes that emotional connection when you get the goosebumps or the coach. That's the first time that had ever happened to me. I mean, I was sitting, they played at Lincoln High School when I was, I guess I was about, what are you in high school, 13?
No.
14, okay, 13 or 14. He was 17 or 18. But I was 13 or 14 when this happened. My freshman year at Lincoln. And I remember sitting there, and they were just so good. And I knew then that I want to make people feel the way, because baseball didn't make me feel like that. That just took, it was an emotional experience. And then I went up there and I started talking. I was like, right before I got to the stage, I wanted to meet him. I was like, that's Binky. And I went up to him, he's like, yeah, man. And he was just like playing in the floor with us and stuff. Except now he's this real cool guy, and all the saxophone player, everybody, they was dressed up like Sly and the Family Stone and Betty. I didn't know that was Betty Jo. I grew up with her. I remember when we were little, we did a thing because Clyde's uncle lived right next door, and they used to have all this. See, Christmas at our house was like, we'd have a rhythm section. I mean, Betty Miller and Milt Abel and Ike would be playing, and my dad would be telling jokes and tap dancing, and they would always include the kids too. So Betty, I remembered her singing San Francisco. She was like maybe 9 years old, and Ronald and I were like 5 and 6, something like that. And we would be tap dancing, and Betty was singing I Left My Heart. And that the next time I had seen her was right there at Lincoln. I saw Binky and Betty Jo, and I was like, wow. And because I knew them from when I was real, and they just, you know. And so the next time I saw them, I had learned a couple of songs that they played by Chicago and all. So it's like it came to a point when Clyde had heard about this trumpet player. When his band broke up, he still had all these gigs. He had to put together a band fast. He heard about this young trumpet player at Lincoln. He didn't know it was me. And I didn't. I mean, I came home from school one day, and my mother said, you got a call from Binky. He wants you to play with his band. I lost it. I lost it. I was like, what? And then my father, he said, well, just see, because he might not realize. I said, no, y'all don't know. Y'all just don't know. It's nowhere in the world this isn't going to happen. So I went, and after he called me back, he realized that I'm the little dude that he used to play in the floor with, that he saw at Lincoln. He said, oh man, it's you? He said, yeah. So he called called me over to the house, and I already knew most of their stuff. I could just play it. And at 16, that was really phenomenal to them because they were playing really difficult things. Stuff by Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and they was doing Cool in the Game, but they had their own arrangement. But I knew their arrangement because we used to always go and listen to them at high school dances. And so I guess when I was about 15 or 16, I knew because I quit playing baseball because I knew I couldn't play with Clyde and her and play baseball. And that was turning. Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Don't get me started. Wait till you ask a question about him.
Anyone with tail pectate in the house. They're real, the mouth in it.
Oh, yeah.
That is over.
Okay. Next question. More me. Okay, come on. Another question.
What's your most memorable moment performing? The thing that stands out in your mind the most?
For me, I think it was performing with Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow.
We were in St. Louis, and it's weird because we were in St. Louis, and we were doing a play about our father and how we follow in his footsteps. It's called Steps, anyway. But Sammy Davis came through, and they was doing the Variety Club Telethon where he was hosting it. And so we just wanted to meet him. But the guy that owned the boat talked to the producers, and they found out that Sammy knew our dad, and so they made sure that we got on the show with Sammy. And we were invited the night before. They had a VIP party. So we went to the VIP party, was thrown out. It is ironic because we were invited by the producer and we didn't have invitations. So after we were thrown out, the producer got everything straight. We got back in. And then the next day, we performed. And just meeting Sammy was like a high point in my life, because all these years I had been watching him on TV, and my dad had been telling us different things about him. And so just meeting somebody of his stature that was so gracious as he was, and then to perform there with him, that was it for me. It don't get no better, I think, back then.
He's waiting.
That's enough.
I don't know if any performance situation tops that one with me either. But I think that as far as the experience, because we've done a lot of traveling, we've done a whole lot of different shows. North Sea Festival in front of like maybe 15,000 people and things like that. But I think the most outstanding situation was over for the troops. That was one that every day I was like a basket case. I've never been around anything like that. I mean, I didn't even play war when I was a little boy. I was never interested in the concept of, bow, I got you and you dead. That's even as a boy, I didn't like that. So to be around everyday bombs and everything, it was like really surreal for me. It was like I was in a daze, and I was seeing all these kids in my mind, because I have children that are old enough to be over there now, and it really touched me deeply. That was the most moving experience that I've ever had. Out of anything, I nothing with me that I've ever been through compares with that, because from that I've gotten so much respect and admiration for anybody that's ever put in any time for our country. It made me really, I always respected people that are in the armed forces, but now it's on a completely different level. I just being over there for the length of time, maybe a week or 8 days, something like that. We were over there.
We was
but
like 10
20. Okay, but 24/7 hearing bombs and and being around it and wearing Kevlar and being carried around in Black Hawk helicopters. And we were just like 2 blocks away from getting one of those IED, is that what one of those, they called it right before our entourage went. We were in these armored bulletproof cars, and somebody detected an IED right as our entourage was going, and then we were with these Navy SEALs and everything, and it was a real big thing. And for me to be in the middle of all of that, knowing that this ain't television, this is not a play, this is not show business, this is the real deal. People will be, matter of fact, the night before we went over there is when I knew how real it was, because it was like I'm sitting there looking at CNN in the hotel room. We did a big thing in Washington, D.C. before we went over there for Wayne Newton and Bo Derek, as a bunch of celebrities. But it was totally different than any celebrity situation we've been in. And I'm watching the news showing, that was I don't know if you guys will remember that, because so much has happened since then, but this is when the first time they had this restaurant and all these people had got blown up in this restaurant. It's the first time that it happened. And that happened the night before we went over, and I'm sitting there looking like, this is where I'll be tomorrow. And it really put a lot.
Yeah, that was quite an experience. And we performed in, I remember we performed in the foyer of one of the palaces, just because these troops could not come to the show, so they flew us there to just sign autographs and meet the troops. And me and Lonnie, we just wanted to do something. So we hummed a song and danced for them.
Because we were the only ones in the entourage. They had Wayne Newton, Bob Schneider, and a lot of them. And so we're all sitting there on this long table, and all the troops are coming up with their rifles strapped on them, and we signing pictures and stuff for them. And then somebody said something about, I wish you could perform. And then Wayne looked down at Ronald. It's almost like all of us knew. Wayne looked down at Ronald and I was like, yeah. And we just jumped out in the middle of the floor and started humming one of our songs and tap dancing, and it just got crazy. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. But that's
at the minstrel shows and county fairs, traveling throughout the South. But he spoke with tears. For 15 years his dog and he just used to travel about. Then his dog up and died. His best friend, up and died. You know, even after 20 years, he still breathes. He said, look, baby, now I used to dance in little bars and honky tonks.